You're watching BR24 live on the third and final day of the Munich Security Conference, and I am very pleased that he is with me now, our very own Clemens Verenkotte, long-time international correspondent. Clemens, before we dive right into details, what was your biggest surprise this year, or your most memorable moment?
The moment the wife and later on widow of Alexei Navalny stepped on stage at the beginning, at the very beginning, and she had been already in Munich. She was bound to speak at one of the podiums, and then she was standing there and was posing just one single question to herself more. Why I am talking to you, the audience right now, she was thinking beforehand, or go to my children and stay with them. And then she continued for a short moment of time, couple of minutes. But this was so intense, saying she was speaking of evil, that the murder on her husband, the country, Ukraine, that somebody, especially Putin, has to be held accountable. And I was not surprised that Christoph Heusgen, just at his closing remarks, was saying basically the same. This was really the moment, and then it started, and this gives us really the focus on what's at stake at the moment.
And let's move on to the EU, which was the subject of most of today. Within these times of conflicts and wars, either ongoing or on the brink, does the EU need a joint defense department, a joint security department, a joint army, maybe even armed with the European atom bomb?
Well, I think the Europeans, the European partners of NATO, they have definitely understood what's at stake, and for sure they are pushing. There are lots of people like EU President von der Leyen saying, for sure we need a commissioner for armament and defense. But the very important thing which we learned during these 3 days is that even if you do structural some things and say, well, we name this, we name this, we name that, there is not enough ammunition for the Ukrainian armed forces to fight the Russian aggression. And even there was a very outspoken U.S. Senator from Ohio, Vance. He was here this morning, and he was saying even the United States, they won't have enough ammunition for this. So what at stake here is to enhance and especially speed up, and especially the, say, legal binding. For example, more like 70% of the munition armament goes from the EU to other countries, not to Ukraine. And therefore you have, on a national basis, always saying, okay, put this on hold, we sent this to Ukraine. So they got the message, but they came to the conclusion here, we spent too much time on this. It's now and no talk, but act.
You've mentioned NATO also was a big subject here, of course, also with the NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg being here yesterday. How well does NATO's deterrence still work, given the remarks by former and maybe again US President Trump?
Well, that was really kind of a shockwave, and even politicians who actually have known him and probably followed his kind of rhetoric, they were stunned by this. So not even by putting something in place, but even mentioning that there could be not a guarantee for everybody who's not paying up. So somebody I talked to during this conference was saying this is not a golf club. You don't, if you know membership, you can leave the court, so to speak, in the green. And this is something which really got to the nerve and center of NATO. And so the consequence right now of European NATO partners was saying, okay, we got the message. We got the message already on February 24th, 2022. But now, with NATO at stake and the guarantee, which is the core of the alliance, they say, okay, we will definitely keep up 2, even 3 or more % of our GMP. And to mention, for example, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, he was saying, for sure, we will keep this 2% for the next decade. He was saying in the next 10 years, 15 years, but without saying how to finance this and how to communicate this to a German public, to a European public, that you have to shift accounts to defense.
Conference Chairman Heusgen said the title of this year's Munich Security Conference was lose-lose, and he always emphasized the question mark at the end of this phrase, lose-lose. And he also said throughout the conference that we all should be on the lookout for silver linings. Also in his closing remarks, he mentioned some silver linings he found for the challenges for the world security architecture. Did you, Clemens, find enough silver linings for Ukraine, the Middle East, China, the US, the EU?
Basically, I would have to put up my glasses and look at it, the silver lines. It's really a bit difficult to find them, because with regard to Ukraine and the Ukrainian president and the delegation in Munich, there was I wouldn't say they were depressed, but they were really a bit looking down to the next weeks and months ahead. So for me, there is no silver lining, and especially even if the United States House of Representatives was the Republicans ordered by Trump would pass $61 billion for Ukraine, this wouldn't change immediately the situation on the battlefield, which doesn't look good at the moment. So there's no one. Secondly, for sure, Christoph Heusgen was mentioning, the Middle East, Gaza, Israel, the war, Rafah, the destruction of the Gaza Strip. But even before this conference, I was looking at the schedule and said, well, there's nothing to discuss at the moment. So it was good to hear. So I said, we talked with this. But in order to get results, no. So there's a silver lining, hopefully, that's for sure, but it's not concrete. It's not concrete at all. So I didn't expect anything else there. And these were basically the two main issues here. For sure, he covered a lot of other issues. For me, it was completely surprising that he opened this conference with a talk and a podium from delegations from countries from the global south, countries which hadn't had a voice here before. So that was something for sure he was looking at. But the focus was really, as we just talked about, Ukraine, NATO, EU, and the Middle East.
Finally, to sum things up a bit, Clemens, what is your main takeaway of this year's Munich Security Conference? If there is like one message, one sentence that will stick, what would it be?
As I said, the widow of Alexei Navalny saying Putin has to pay a price and has to hold accountable his own regime. If he continues, there would be disaster all over and all over.
Thank you so much, Clemens Verenkotte, for taking the time today to talk with me about global policy on stage here in Munich. And that's all, folks. Thank you for watching BR24 Live on the Munich Security Conference 2024. My name is Dominic Possoch, and I wish you all a pleasant Sunday.